Hello, I'm Sister Unity, and I have a story for you of love. Love doesn't always follow a straight path. Sometimes it's a little peculiar, and this story may be a little peculiar. In fact, it's peculiar because I don't know it. I know some parts of it, but other parts, I'm going to need the help of the tarot. I will select cards from the tarot, and they will suggest the next part of the story. Shall we begin? Once upon a time, there was a girl, and she lived on a farm with her parents. Now, these parents grew an inordinate amount of fruit, but only fruit that grows on trees. Apples, peaches, plums, pears, cherimoyas. No blueberries, no raspberries, those grow on bushes, and no strawberries, those are low. Well, this girl, she liked to read. She loved all things to do with the mind. She loved the arts. And she loved to read. It fed her. And so she could be found anytime, anywhere, reading. Her parents would be out in the orchards picking the peaches, climbing up to an especially high limb to pluck that extra fat, juicy fruit, when there, hanging from the branch beside them, was their daughter, reading Proust. Or they would have a day at the beach and pack up ready to go and look around for her and couldn't find her. Oh, there she was, floating out to sea on her inflatable pillow, reading some book about peculiar crustaceans. Or, in the middle of a dentist appointment, she'd have a copy of Popular Mechanics and be brushing up on the latest techniques for her ratchet. Well, this girl, she was often on her own. A lot of the boys and girls in her school preferred to spend their time with children who didn't read quite so much about quite so many things. And so she had her company to herself. And one late evening, she was found reading in her favorite, quietest reading spot of all, the graveyard. She had brought a copy of Grimm's fairy tales to the graveyard to read to what she presumed would be the dead spirits. Well, she was reading Little Red Riding Hood with much gusto, and the wolf snapped up Grandma and chewed her like teriyaki. When the spirit of a boy about her age who had died some centuries prior, during the period of the Goths, Visi or Ostra, one doesn't remember which, rose up from the ground beside her and stared at her as she read. Well, she thought, at last, a customer! And she read with even more gusto. Then the wolf put on Granny's nightie! But the boy was not so interested in this trite little story. Now, he was a ghost, so he couldn't say anything. So he communicated with his face. And his thoughts about Little Red Riding Hood were this. So the girl stopped. And she flipped a few pages and she went to Rapunzel. Everyone loves Rapunzel. And she read Rapunzel. And the boy made a face like this. So she stopped. And then she pulled out all the stops. And she read Sleeping Beauty with the witch fairy that turns into a dragon. Blah. And the boy made a facial expression like this. So she set the book down and thought. And then she said, "Do you know what, my fine wispy friend, who's like a cloud of Febreze? You and I need to go on our own adventure and write our own stories. Shall we go?" And she ran back to her parents' house and collected a bunch of fruit and a block of cheese and tied it in a kerchief to the end of a stick, which she flung over her shoulder, and she hit the road, with Mr. Wispy trailing along behind her. Companions. And as they went along, they hummed a little tune. Okay, well, she hummed a little tune, and he played along by bobbing and weaving, as only spirits can do when they're floating, to the time of the music. And they walked on like this for a day and a night, until they came to a town. And in that town there were beggars and paupers and poor people, and they lived in shacks made from sticks and rags, while in the center of the town, in large stone and marble houses, there lived wealthy people who had all the best things of life and didn't share any with the poor people. And the girl thought, what can we do about this? And she went to the poor people and she said, "Why don't you do something about this? There are far more of you than there are wealthy people. Why don't you just go and force them to give you food and nice things?" And the poor people said to her, "We are poor, but we have not lost our sense of justice. We would rather live poorly, but doing what is good and right, than to live well at the expense of someone else and living with poor morals." So then the little girl had an idea, and she went to the houses of the wealthy. And she conferred with the ghost boy on her plan. And she knocked at the door of the wealthiest man there. And he let her in and said, "Oh, you've been traveling for so long, you must be weary. Here, why don't you have a scrap of bread and some butter, and you can spend the night on that little cot by the door where the maid usually sleeps, but she's home visiting her mother." And the little girl said, "Thank you," and as she ate her bread and butter, she said, "You know, it's a funny thing. As I walked here to your town, I heard such a caterwauling and a moaning." And he said, "Oh?" The wealthy man said, "Oh?" And the girl said, "Yes, yes, the poor people, you know, they have nothing." And the rich man said, "Well, yes, that is their lot. Oh, well. You know, if they were more industrious, they could do for themselves. But oh well, they accept their fate. What is one to do?" And the little girl said, "Yes, yes, what could one do? If only one had resources to assist. You know, this caterwauling was because a young boy had died of hunger. Right here in the walls of your city, not 50 feet from your house, lives his mother alone, that boy now dead. I wonder how he feels about the fact that he died of hunger, while so many people of his own town go and feed themselves quite well every day." And when she said that, the ghost boy made himself present, and he rattled the silverware, and he blew the fire out, and he made the windows slam open and shut. And he appeared as a grey mist in the center of the room, And the wealthy man was so frightened that he swore to the girl. He said, "Oh, girl, I will change my ways. I will feed those who are my own neighbors and make sure that they have enough. I'll give them some jobs so that they may earn their own way. I'll find something to do. I'll find a way. Just please, please let this ghost live in peace." And the girl broke off a piece of the bread that the rich man gave her, and she set it on a clean plate and said, "Here, ghost, this is for you. You may not have ate while you were alive, but this man who has so much and I give you this offering freely, that your soul may be at rest." And the ghost boy settled down, laughing silently to himself. And the next day, as the girl and the ghost boy left the wealthy man's house to continue their journey, they observed him, having gotten up at the crack of dawn, down at the outskirts, handing out spare clothes and making deals for employment with the poor. Well, the girl and the ghost boy walked on, and they talked amongst themselves how good and how right that had been. And the ghost boy, who couldn't really speak words, learned that he could blow in the girl's ear, and his thoughts would mingle with hers. And so he blew in her ear, and the girl laughed and said, "Yes, I think you're right. I think there is absolutely nothing wrong with a little humor and playing a few tricks in the name of justice." And they discovered that they thought alike about the ways of the world. They walked on for another day and another night, and this time they came upon a church. And it was almost night, and they went into the church, and there, at the front of the church, they saw a priest dressed in fine raiments, with a crown on his head, with crosses all round. And they said to the priest, "Why do you weep?" And the priest said, "I am rich. I know all of the scriptures. The parishioners give me all of the money that they can on Sundays. I have even become the king of this town because people respect me so much for my spiritual wisdom and my material beneficence. But I'm haunted by my dreams and my emotions, and I don't know what to do." And the girl said, "What about your dreams and your emotions haunts you?" And the priest said, "It is because, in order to be a priest, I had to turn my back on everything in my life that I loved." The priest said, "I had been a young farmer, and I was in love with a girl who lived not far from my farm. And I asked her father for her hand in marriage, and we were going to be married. And I was taking my harvest of wheat into the city to sell it at the market. And when I did that, there was an old man who used to be the priest of this temple, this church, and he came to buy wheat from me, and he liked me, and he thought me very handsome. And so he said, 'Young man, if you come and study with me, I will make you a priest, and I will make you more wealthy than if you owned 10 farms, because the people in this city are very religious, and they do as I tell them. I am old and I will die within a few years, and then my position will be yours." And so, allured by the glittering chalices and altarpieces of his church, his wealth and his position, I left the girl I loved, and the farm that I had worked, and my poor parents, without even saying goodbye, and became the priest of this church. And that poor girl, she died of heartache. I feel that I have done her in. And so, when I'm done with my sermons and the parishioners are gone, I sit here and I weep and I pray for my immortal soul, for as gilded as my life is, I know that I will not find favor in the other world. If only I could be at peace. And the girl turned to the ghost boy, and she said, "Isn't there something we can do?" And the ghost boy raised one finger as if to say, "Hang on, I've got this." And he disappeared beyond the veil and went to the spirit world, and he asked the spirits, "Have you seen a girl who was a farm girl, who loved a man who left her alone and became a priest in the big city?" And the spirits talked amongst themselves, and they all talked to each other until they found that one among them came forward and said, "Yes, I was a farm girl, and my heart was broken, and I died for the love of a man who had cherished me and somehow turned his back on me to go and become a very wealthy priest and much admired. If only I could tell him that it's all right, that I still love him and I forgive him, because the world is difficult and hard and the life of a farmer is no joy, and I'm happy he's done so well, and my soul only is at unrest, knowing that he is unhappy. Take my forgiveness back into the real world, and if you can, set him free with it." The ghost boy returned to the church, and he blew in the girl's ear, and the words of the farm girl's ghost were in the girl's mind, and she spoke them to the priest, saying, "I know a spirit, and he has gone and talked with the girl you loved, and her words for you are forgiveness. She loves you still, and her soul is disturbed because you are unhappy. She forgives you, and with love wishes you well to enjoy your life. She would not have you feel this distress." And the priest wept, this time with relief, and he thanked the girl, and he prayed for the ghost boy's spirit. And they spent the night in the priest's rectory, and in the morning he gave them gold and food and sent them on their way. And they walked on, talking about what they had done. And the ghost boy and the girl decided that they would dedicate their lives to using what art and words they could to help people in their communities. Well, they walked on, and they came to a forest. And in that forest, they came to the hovel of a hermit. And this hermit lived alone in his hovel, meditating and praying, and he prayed to the goddesses three, the goddesses of grace. And the girl and the boy went to the hermit, and they told him the stories of the people they had met. They told him about the priest, and they told him about the town and the wealthy man, and they told him about what they had done. And the hermit could see the ghost boy because he meditated profusely. And if you know anything about meditation, you know that if you do it long enough, it makes your senses and your intuition sharp enough to see people who are not there. Well, the hermit said, "Tomorrow is Midsummer's Eve, and we shall hold a ritual in the clearing in this forest. For I think that the goddesses three will want to hear of your stories." And the very next day they held a ritual, and they made offerings to the goddess three, and they danced in a circle and called them forth. And the goddesses came forward. And the goddesses, full of grace and abundance, were pleased with the girl, the ghost boy, and the tales the hermit told them of their goodness. And the goddesses said to the hermit, "Tell the girl that we grant her a boon. What will she have? Anything that we can give and convey." And the hermit told this to the girl. And the girl thought for a moment. And the girl said, "Devis, goddesses, divine ones, there is a spirit of a boy, and I have grown to feel so much love and respect in my heart for this boy. I wish him well, and so my one boon is, grant him knowledge of the absolute truth. Give him enlightenment that he may no longer be a ghost tied to this earth in a state of being between the world and the after. Let him be free and merge into the ultimate reality, the divine bliss of the absolute. Let him be one with that and be free." The goddesses told the hermit, "We are pleased. We grant her boon." And the hermit told the girl, "Close your eyes. The goddess is conveying your wish." And there was a great wind. And when the girl opened her eyes, there before her was the hermit, and beside him there was a boy, a ghost boy made flesh, and he was pinching and tickling himself because he could not believe that he had a body. And the girl said, "Goddesses, I have wished for ultimate freedom, merging in the absolute and bliss for this boy. Why is he now in flesh and form?" And speaking through the hermit, the goddesses told the girl, "The only way that you can truly achieve enlightenment is not by the whims of a god. It is through the practice of meditation, prayer, contemplation, chanting, using the physical world to attain the realization that all is one. We, the goddess, you, the people, the dirt beneath your feet, the wind in the air, is all made of the shimmering, blissful light of the Absolute. Your own awareness and mind is the ultimate truth. So, because it is your own mind, you need a mind to perceive it. And so we have given this boy flesh and a life in the world, that he may use it to understand the truth and attain your wish for him by using the material world to understand the spirit behind it. Indeed, now that he has a body, we give him to you and you to him, to hold, to be in love, and to partner in life. Because a relationship takes the divine, love, and puts it into a material form where it can express itself in great joy and happiness, but where it can also light fires of conflict and learning. Ha ha ha! You will find yourself petty with pride and flaming with anger and jealousy and envy, and these we give to you both, that you may learn about them, about yourselves, about each other, and that the love you will stoke and inspire for each other will guide you past these petty feelings, and you will know the truth beyond the shifting emotions of the world. Then you will have wisdom. Then you will both attain enlightenment. And so it was. The girl and the boy built a homestead in that very clearing, and they honored the goddesses three always, inviting the hermit to dinner, and living married by the hermit to each other as a couple, happy and arguing here and there, but blissful, and using the love they felt for each other to guide themselves in wisdom and prosperity. And indeed, Erin and Joshua lived happily ever after. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.